the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. Good afternoon, friends, and welcome to the 33rd episode of Crime and Punishment, a legal podcast, not a political one. God forbid. We have absolutely no political affiliations, political leanings, political ideas. This is a legal podcast, the official podcast of the Invictus Law Firm, PA, a criminal defense law firm in Orlando, Florida. The website for this law firm being augustusinvictus.com, and that is yours truly, the host of this program. I'm here with my trusty co-host, Tiger Jen. Tiger, do you read me?
Yes.
Radical. So today, we have a very serious topic to discuss. I want to give some trigger warnings to those of you in the audience out there. If you are listening with small children, please don't. Either expel them from the room or turn this off and come back later. This is a deadly serious topic. We debated whether even to broadcast it for love of Big Brother. We regret to even talk about this, except that everybody else is, and how could we not? There is dangerous talk of a second civil war. There is a clear comparison to be drawn between what happened a year ago yesterday, January 6th, 2021. Clear comparison to be drawn between that horrific incident and Pearl Harbor, or even worse, 9/11. We are going to talk about those things today, as the president and vice president did yesterday. We're going to play you at least the audio. We don't really do video here, but the audio of John Avlon discussing how dangerous talk of a second civil war is different today than it has been previously. So again, if you are listening with small children, please don't. And if you have a weakened heart condition, please, we'll see you next episode. Just go ahead and turn this off. Now, Chase is telling us everyone sounds good. That is good to hear. Thank God for our audience. How are you guys doing today? Are we free to say what we really think? Well, of course, but that's Storm Hunter asking, is that really responsible to say what we really think? Adam Carolla, the comedian, posted something on Twitter yesterday. It was a screenshot of an internal Zoom message to a staff meeting, about a staff meeting being held at Zoom via Zoom. It was very meta, but these Zoom staffers were holding a Zoom meeting, and the memo said, listen, we need everyone to appear with masks. Do not come to this meeting without a mask. Reason being, there are people at Zoom who are afraid of unmasked persons. Pardon me, that's the phrase. So we are at a point now where you cannot appear at a virtual meeting being unmasked because certain people are afraid of it. And thank God, thank God that we have such concern for our fellow citizens. We would not ever want anyone to feel uncomfortable in a meeting, especially a business meeting. I mean, how could you conduct business in America if you walk into a meeting and you're afraid that someone is going to attack you because they're not wearing a mask? It's a legitimate phobia that I hope doctors are becoming more and more and more aware of. So, Storm Hunter, while we could say the things we're thinking, I really don't think that's responsible. He's asking whether this is the new time. Yeah, we're going to try this out. We have been advised not to do it on Fridays, so we might be doing this on Tuesday or Wednesday next week. We'll find out what we're going to do, but we told y'all we were coming back today on a Friday. Last episode we did, so here we are. And next time this might be on a different day, but we are going to start doing it during the day because I tell you, being fathers as well as lawyers, during the day it's impossible, but during the night it is just impossible. So
Now, I thought we were going to be doing it during the day because we were going to be doing 3, 4 hour live streams.
oh yeah, that too, especially during trial weeks. Yeah. Anything to dodge work, right, Tiger? No, yeah, if you've got a law firm and you've got kids at night, there's just any spare minute you might have is spent catching up on the day that you've just been brutalized in. So this is it. We're gonna have to do this so we can get back to consistency. It used to be that when we started this show, we did it religiously every Monday, 8 p.m. on the dot. That has proved to be impossible as of late, so we've been getting fewer and fewer episodes in. So we're just going to do it during the day when we know we can get them in. And today we are late, so this might be a short episode, but by God, we are going to do it, especially because our topic today is so horrific, it cannot pass without being addressed. And had we not told you it was going to be on a Friday, we would have done this episode yesterday so that we could talk at the same time as our illustrious Vice President, Big Mama Kamala Harris. And I'm just going to play this address in which she rightly so, compares what happened a year ago today with Pearl Harbor and 9/11. Let's listen to this.
Certain dates echo throughout history, including dates that instantly remind all who have lived through them where they were and what they were doing when our democracy came under assault. Dates that occupy not only a place on our calendars, but a place in our collective memory. December 7th, 1941, September 11th, 2001, and January 6th, 2021. On that day, I was not only Vice President-elect, I was also a United States Senator. And I was here at the Capitol that morning at a classified hearing with fellow members of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Hours later, the gates of the Capitol were breached. I had left, but my thoughts immediately turned not only to my colleagues, but to my staff, who had been forced to seek refuge in our office, converting filing cabinets into barricades.
Just horrific. The just unparalleled violence. I can't... I'm a little choked up right now. That is our Vice President, God bless her. She is a brave soul. She didn't even get to barricade herself with filing cabinets because she ran out of the building, presumably with Secret Service. And thank God, because she's safe now. Now, what I love about this is that you heard her. You heard her. You heard it yourself. This is not secondhand information. You heard her voice saying it. She is listing January 6th along with 9/11 and Pearl Harbor. However, you go to Snopes.com. Tiger, are you familiar with Snopes.com? This thing's been around since the internet started. It's like a leftist fact-checking. Yeah, they do quote-unquote fact-checking. And the guy is obviously a leftist and just keeps getting worse as he ages. Is it even still a person? Or I'm assuming he's got a staff now that does this?
It's got to be, yeah. It's got to be like a business now.
Yeah, there's no way he has the time to do this. And he must be 80 at this point. So this, did Kamala Harris say January 6th attack was worse than 9/11 or Pearl Harbor? The subheading to this is, right-leaning critics found fault in the vice president's remarks on the first anniversary of the U.S. Capitol attack. You know what's great about that? That means there will be more anniversaries on the U.S. Capitol attack. So every year we are going to have to hear about this. Not to have to hear about 9/11 and Pearl Harbor, like those are actual attacks, but every year we will have the opportunity to reflect on this horrific attack at the heart of democracy in the world. Claim In January 2022, Vice President Kamala Harris said the January 6th U.S. Capitol attack was worse than Pearl Harbor and or 9/11. Rating? Mostly false. So, it's like he twists what the claim is, because obviously she did compare it to January 6th, and what's amazing is like that clip that we played is from Yahoo News. Oh, I'm sorry. This is Business Insider. Actually, this is replayed on Yahoo News, and the clip itself was from MRC TV. And point being, none of these are right-wing outlets, and they were the ones who said Kamala Harris compares January 6th to Pearl Harbor and 9/11 in anniversary speech at the Capitol. So it's really like 1984. They just make things up. They create this narrative. It's in the media. People believe what they see on the internet. And it's like you're watching history be crafted just out of thin air right before your eyes. You really have to take your hat off. I mean, it's inspiring. Now, we've got that. We've got this thing by John Avlon. Now, the reason I wanted to play John Avlon's clip was because I was at the gym this morning. For whatever reason, some concerned citizen, whom I would greatly respect if I knew who it was, turned on CNN. I don't know how that came to be. Not in my neighborhood. But I'm in the gym, and this is on, and I happen to see it. And John Avlon is making the argument that Trump can be prosecuted under the Insurrection Act. He made a case, just straight, flat out, on air, argued a case for why Trump should be prosecuted criminally for inciting an insurrection in the United States. Now, I didn't know at the time, because I very rarely have the opportunity to watch CNN as much as I would like. I didn't know that just the day before, i.e. yesterday, he had put out this video. Oh, you know what? I have that saved here. Check that out. How dangerous talk of a second civil war is different today. We're going to play you this butte right here. In 3, we are not going to get sued by CNN. I will not accept that lawsuit because this is fair use. We are commenting on this. Where obviously we have no stance on whether this is politically correct or not, whether John Avlon is a lunatic or whether he's made a strong argument. We're just discussing this from a legal point of view. We have no political persuasion here. We're just playing this for legal purposes. Let's check this out.
Hey all, I'm John Avlon, and this is Reality Check on the Extremist Beat. A second civil war. That's a phrase that should frighten you. It's an obscene idea, given that 750,000 Americans died in the Civil War more than 150 years ago. But in recent years, as we've seen partisan politics deepen their divide along regional, racial, and ideological lines, loudly denying the legitimacy of the opposition, we've watched distrust escalate while hate proliferates. And with it, we've seen a sickening uptick in second Civil War rhetoric.
Sickening.
It's grown from self-styled militia members and extremists online, crossed over into conservative populist protests, and even conservative members of Congress. Ex-President Donald Trump retweeted warnings about a second Civil War to inflame his base ahead of his first impeachment. And some of the rioters...
Now, you can't see this because we're playing the audio, but it's actually, I'm pretty sure it looks like Trump is quoting a pastor on Fox News. This is not Trump speaking. It's a tweet by Trump quoting someone else. He says, if the Democrats are successful in removing the president from office, which they will never be, it will cause a civil war-like fracture in this nation from which our country will never heal. That was Pastor Robert Jeffress. That was not Trump. Trump was just tweeting that. But I guess he's banking on the fact that you're just not going to read it. You're just going to take his word for it as he's talking. So that's an interesting point.
who stormed the U.S. Capitol, trying to stop the counting of electoral votes after the victory of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, were wearing T-shirts promoting civil war, while others wielded Confederate flags. Since that insurrection attempt, there's been talk of a national divorce by likes of Marjorie Taylor Greene, Alabama's Mo Brooks, and North Carolina's Madison Cawthorn.
If our election systems continue to be rigged and continue to be stolen, then it's going to lead to one place, and it's bloodshed. And I will tell you, as much as I'm willing to defend our liberty at all costs, there's nothing that I would dread doing more than having to pick up arms against a fellow American.
Inevitably, all this talk trickles down to Trump rally-goers.
You genuinely believe that he's
coming back.
That he could come back as soon as
Before the middle of August.
And what if that doesn't happen?
Huh?
What if that doesn't happen?
We're going to be in a civil war because the militia will be taking over.
They've been dangerously misled by the big lie, which is nothing but a new form of Confederate lost cause mythology. And I don't...
Oh, he's got a lot of phrases to drop there. The big lie, of course, that is a reference directly to He Who Must Not Be Named. The lost cause, the Confederacy. He's trying so hard to link MAGA and the Confederates. He's got these Confederate flags. These are obviously Civil War aficionados who want the Civil War to come back. Let's see. Going through the comments here. Better not really say what I think during this episode. I think that's probably for the best, Storm Hunter. Supreme Court discussion. Not today. Not today. Today we are discussing the horrific events of January 6th. Chase says that comparing January 6th to actual terrorist attacks that killed thousands of people is insulting. Whew. That's a big claim. Also, by the way, an actual attack by a foreign enemy at Pearl Harbor. Let's not forget we're comparing it to that, because these people that are saying "Make America Great Again," they are literally on par with Japanese kamikaze pilots. Just think of it that way. Frank says, not heard a thing from you in about a year. Well, I don't know. We've been doing this podcast for a year now. Actually, next month, February 1st, it'll be a year that we've been doing this podcast, believe it or not. Time flies, huh? Coming vax mandate in Supreme Court today would trigger this. I don't know. Was there a vax mandate? Tiger, do you know about that? Is there a vaccine mandate today in the Supreme Court?
Yeah, they're hearing oral arguments about it, but I have been out of the loop. I don't know exactly what the case is or what the mandate is regarding. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that next time around. We did not educate ourselves on what was going on there. Chase is saying it's interesting that the left has adopted the term the big lie. It is interesting, isn't it? When you hear people talking about Hitler's propaganda, they will say, it will quote him as saying, if you tell a lie often enough, people will start to believe that it's true. They'll quote him on that because he's an evil mastermind. His propaganda is just diabolical. What they never tell you is that he was talking about Winston Churchill when he wrote that. This whole big lie thing, that was Hitler talking about the people who made the big lie. I don't know why YouTube is hiding that comment. As a Supreme Court attorney myself, I obviously never voice any opinions that would be adverse to the Supreme Court justices, but I'm also not going to, censor people who are making comments about the Supreme Court justices. That is not my job, and I don't understand why YouTube is doing that for me. So I would never call Justice Kagan a moron, but I'm not going to stop Symphonies from saying that. You should consider joining Odyssey. I tell you, man, it's enough problem for me to get on YouTube. I've been using this for years, and I still hate it. We've got somebody who's actually going to be helping out with the social media and the YouTube stuff, so we might get into that. but it won't be me pushing into there. If we get into that, it's because the hip crowd is going to help us move into there. We've already got DLive and Twitch and all that simulcasting as we speak. That's all I can handle, man. All right, let's continue on in this, the big lie and the lost cause of the Confederacy. Boy, he is dropping some wisdom here. Let's check this out.
I mention this because I think a second civil war is likely, but it's no longer unthinkable to many people, which erodes trust in our democracy. Let me give you an example. A new Harvard Institute of Politics poll asked young Americans to put a percentage on the chance that America will see a second civil war in their lifetime. Now, these sorts of dramatic what-if questions are generally worth taking with a major grain of salt, but even still, 35% of all respondents said they thought there was at least a 50% chance of a second civil war in their lifetime. We should know better than to play with these forces.
Yeah, we should know better. That reminds me, I had another article that I did not send to you, Tiger. It's from The Intercept, as a matter of fact. I don't know why I'm still subscribed to The Intercept. I'll admit that I am, but since Greenwald left, it has just not been the same. It is a leftist outlet at this point. They still do some good things, every now and then they've actually uncovered something real. But really at this point it's just, let's see what the left is up to. They've lost a lot of their integrity. You can probably trust maybe half of what The Intercept says at this point. But this one here, I like this article. It's titled, "It's January 6th, and the warning lights are flashing red." This is from yesterday, published yesterday at 6 a.m. The subtitle is, "We are no longer observers of the distressed futures that afflict other people. We are those people now."
I just want to say, what I was doing January 6th?
Like yesterday?
The epiphany of the Lord. I mean, that is what it means to me. But I guess, I don't know. I guess
a satanic conspiracy to overthrow January 6th in the liturgy. It is now no longer the epiphany of the Lord. It is the anniversary of the horrific attack on our capital. The heart of democracy, Tiger. Good gravy. You've got to wake up, man.
I guess.
Because, Tiger, we are no longer the observers of the distressed futures that afflict other people. We are those people now. No, what I love about this title is that I think left and right agree on that, right? We are living in the dystopian future. I've said that 100 times, quite publicly. The interesting thing is, they think this is a dystopian future, too. It's, man, what a wild universe we live in. It was the winter of 1991, and the country I was working in, the Soviet Union, was months away from its demise. Yet the collapse, so close, was unimaginable. Moscow was frigid and miserable. The currency was a wreck, stores had empty shelves, and the Kremlin seemed more of a ghost ship than command center. The country's Baltic republics were seeking independence, and when I reported on the violence that had already occurred there, struggle and darkness were all that seemed possible. I was visiting the Soviet Union to help my overworked colleagues from the Washington Post, and on one of my first nights, I had dinner with a few correspondents who lived in the country and knew what was going on, or was supposed to. They talked of a grim era ahead in which the KGB and the Soviet army would rule the country because its leader, Mikhail Gorbachev, was losing control. His reforms unleashed only discontent and poverty. And then, of course, they ask whether we will help them by becoming a member and donating to The Intercept, which, quite frankly, I never will. After what they did to Glenn Greenwald and after the just nosedive they have done into this sort of garbage. A few years later, like the Rittenhouse article. Did I ever send you that one, Tiger?
Maybe.
All right, so The Intercept published an article on the Rittenhouse trial, and it said it wasn't Rittenhouse that was on trial. It was these protesters. It was the right to freedom of speech. It was just the most insane leftist horse manure you've ever seen come out of The Intercept. That was the day I was like, okay, I'm not going to press the unsubscribe button, but I now know what I am subscribed to. that was the turning point for me. So I will never donate to The Intercept. But I do want to read this part because you are listening to an article in which a writer for The Intercept, who, by the way, used to work for the Washington Post, that should be a red flag right there, is saying we live in a dystopian future because the United States, like the Soviet Union, is falling. And it's because of horrible MAGA people who tried to overthrow democracy. It's really double talk, double speak from 1984. It's a double plus good, comrade. Nightmares. We are those people now. 1 year after the storming of the U.S. Congress, this is The Intercept, for the love of God. 1 year after the storming of the U.S. Congress, it's a good time to recognize that we are no longer observers of the distressed futures that afflict other people. We are those people now. It is we, not the out-of-luck them, who are at the mercy of nightmares. So today is a good day to understand what that means. And then, immediately after that, is a picture of a tank firing on demonstrators in the Soviet Union and Lithuania in 1991. The headline of the next section being Sinister Dimensions, which, I mean, honestly is a pretty based headline.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am a glutton for dystopia. While covering the war in Bosnia, I read J.G. Ballard's High Rise. I mean, it's a cool article. I love the art. If I were a teenager, I would love The Intercept to this day. But it's interesting. He's comparing this to the Balkans. He is talking about the Yugoslav wars. I've done that. Pat Buchanan has done that. This is coming. It is a matter of fact. America will fall into civil war, and it will be another Balkan situation. And it's amazing. The Intercept is saying, yeah, this is coming, but you know what? It was Donald Trump's fault. Are you freaking kidding me? Yeah, Donald Trump has balkanized America over the past 60 years. That was 100% him and those magatards. It's incredible. Incredible what we see being crafted right before our eyes. And it's going to take historians 500 more years to figure this out. Anyway, what were we doing? We were listening to John Avlon. This guy.
So.
What a great commentator. Let's continue.
As a country, we should not have to learn these lessons again. But consider this warning from former Union General and U.S. President Ulysses S. Grant in 1875. If we are to have another civil war, I predict the dividing line will not be Mason and Dixon's, but between patriotism and intelligence on the one side, and superstition, ambition, and ignorance on the other.
You hear that? John Avlon is quoting Ulysses S. Grant as saying that on one side there will be superstition, ambition, and ignorance, and on the other side there's going to be patriotism. He is actually saying that the Democrats are the patriots. Antifa, Black Lives Matter, all these people claiming that there was an attack on the Capitol at the heart of democracy, these people are the real patriots.
Joining me next to discuss the reasons for the rise and talk about a second civil war and the history of violent attempts to overturn elections in the United States is professor and historian Edna Green Medford and CNN correspondent Ellie Reeve, whose new documentary White Power on Trial debuted in December.
Return to
I
Charlottesville.
want to thank you both for joining me. And
you couldn't see the video, but this is the woman who made the quote-unquote documentary about white supremacy, and they had to show Richard Spencer in this clip. I regret we couldn't show you the video because I'm not that technologically savvy, and this is an audio program, but that's what's going on here.
Edna, as a professor of history, I want to start with you. How do you even begin to make sense of this second Civil War talk?
Unfortunately, the average American does not know his or her history, and I think if we all did, we wouldn't think or do the things that we tend to do. If we look at what has happened historically, we can see that this is a pattern of behavior. We see it in Reconstruction, when Black men get the right to vote and white men become alarmed that they're somehow going to lose power. And so what they attempt to do is steal elections. You know, they implement all kinds of illegal and extra-legal means to hold on to power. And when they're not able to hold on to power by doing that, they resort to violence and intimidation, and they even resort to toppling democratically elected governments, as in Wilmington, for instance, in 1898, Wilmington, North Carolina, where there were Black men who were elected to office. And so the white population simply ignores that, and they run Black leaders out of town. They burn Black homes and Black businesses. They attack Black people. And so Wilmington is no longer that wonderful experiment that could have ended a lot differently and certainly more positively.
Ellie, the violence that Edna just described is often predicated by a tactic called aggressive defensiveness. In the Reconstruction era, there was the threat of violence as a way of trying to intimidate perceived opponents into doing what you want. You've covered the Unite the Right rally.
And there is, by the way, this girl with Christopher Cantwell in her Vice quote-unquote documentary. Obligatory that they would play that. What is really interesting, though, this has to happen. They have to play her interviewing Richard Spencer, her interviewing Christopher Cantwell with his shirt off. They have to do that. But what you're missing is this underlying nefarious thing they're slipping in there. All of this is reaction to the Reconstruction. That's what it is. As a Southerner, it screams out to me. It's very obvious what he's saying. We are still under Reconstruction. What's really interesting, though, is he's basically saying the entire country is under Reconstruction. And anyone who has a problem with that is literally the KKK. I mean, literally, not, well, you're kind of like the KKK because, they resisted Reconstruction in the South after the Civil War in the 1870s, 1880s, 1890s. No, you are literally the KKK because the entire country is now under Reconstruction. These are what you call implied premises in his argument. He just keeps running with them. Just like Edna, who was just talking, she's talking about all these horrific attacks on elected officials who happen to be African American by hateful white people. What she's not saying is all of the reconstructive efforts that led up to that point, where all of these people were disenfranchised, where the radical Republicans wanted to hang all the Southern officers. Of course, she's not going to go into the whole history of the Civil War and its aftermath. That would be ridiculous. All she has to talk about is these evil white people wanted to kill and overthrow democratically elected governments. It's the same thing being alleged now. The entire point, as I understand it, I wasn't there. I have no political interest in it. This is an apolitical, legal podcast. But the point is, I understand it, having heard from all these people, is that they were there at the Capitol protesting the fact that it was not a democratically elected government, which, by the way, is exactly what the Southerners were saying after the Civil War. We did not elect these people. You disenfranchised us. You had all of these carpetbaggers, that's the term, come down from the North to take over these quote-unquote elected positions. None of this is democratic. We didn't vote for this. We didn't vote for Joe Biden. Again, that's not my speech. That's just what people were saying who were there. This was a fraudulent election, and that fraud means there was no real election, and so we want either a recount or a re-election, or we want the rightfully elected president, which is Donald Trump, to be recognized. What they are saying, John Avlon and his guests, is that these people protesting are the ones who want to overthrow democratically elected governments. Incredible. Incredible. Let's keep listening, because I'm sure this young lady is going to have very enlightening things to say. Ellie Reeve, let's hear what she has to say.
At Charlottesville and the January 6th attack, both of which employed various degrees of aggressive defensiveness and erupted.
But let's first talk about the fact, right, that we have been saying this since last year. We told everybody about what happened at Charlottesville, how there was a parallel universe created, this false narrative of what happened in Charlottesville, created the same day. Literally before anybody even got back to their hotel rooms, the media was running this footage and claiming these things that absolutely did not happen in reality. And we said after the January 6th thing, the same thing started happening again. We said, look, what happened in Charlottesville is happening with this January 6th prosecution. It is now the largest prosecution in the history of the United States. Charlottesville was just a stepping stone to that. And now they are implicitly admitting that. They have now tied together Charlottesville with the January 6th prosecutions.
Into real violence. And at those rallies, you've seen the neo-Confederate gear and the Civil War swag. When you talk to people and when you ask them why they're wearing it, what do they tell you? How do they rationalize it?
The way they talk themselves into doing violence is by talking about self-defense. They never say, I want to go out there and beat someone up. They just keep talking about this vague threat of, say, Antifa. And then over time, as that threat becomes bigger and bigger in their minds, they become more and more specific about the self-defense weapons that they want to use and whether they should bring some that are subtle so they won't get in trouble. So like these totally normal seeming people, middle-aged people from middle America, were talking about what they could bring instead of brass knuckles to January 6th, just in case Antifa was there. And of course, Antifa wasn't there. But they had conditioned themselves to do violence already, and so they participated in it. As for a civil war, there's kind of a mix. There are people who are using Confederate iconography cynically and people who believe in it sincerely.
And to that point, we're going to play a clip of you talking to a particularly amped up Trump supporter on January 6th. And I want you to take a look and then tell us about it.
That's what we're doing. We're fighting back.
And what's the point? What's the end game?
What's the point?
Yeah.
We're losing our freedoms. What do you mean, what's the point?
Describe it to me.
I'm going to describe it to you.
You're not even knowing is that
I will
that's
describe
the
it
point
to you.
right there.
To people.
What are we supposed to do? Okay?
Tell me.
The Supreme Court's not helping us. No one's helping us. Only us can help us.
Okay.
Only we can do it.
What are you going to do?
Whatever we have to do. What do you think 1776 was?
You look at that guy, he's sincere. He clearly, sincerely believes that he is doing something good for the country. And that's how most people who get involved in this are. Yes, there are some who are intentional bad actors, but a lot of them have convinced themselves they're doing something good to preserve.
I hate to rain on this girl's parade, but all those bad actors turned out to be FBI agents, last I checked. Everyone else did sincerely believe that what they were doing was the good thing, which is protecting America. Tiger, did you see that one article about, what was it? Oh man, I forget. There are just so many of these going on in the past 2 days, like a flurry of crazy headlines and wild articles.
I've been busy with the 12 days of Christmas and the whole Christmas season. So, I completely missed everything.
My kid's karate sensei yesterday was like, how many of you still on Christmas vacation? I'm like, here. 100%. That's me. I'm not checked in yet. Yeah, I forget what it was, but it's just, I do want to say thank you to Dr. Fraser Crane, who is tuned in. I love your show.
Yes.
I'm not from Seattle, but I support what you're doing, Dr. Fraser Crane. Thank you for tuning into our show. I'd be happy to join you on your show one day. That'd be an honor. Brian's saying good afternoon from the west. Good afternoon from the east. Let's see what else we got here. Seamus is in St. Augustine today. The city, not the saint, which would be Augustine.
Yes.
So, welcome to Florida, amigo. This is a nice place, man. Cool castle. I did not appreciate it when I was in high school for our ROTC trips, but very cool place. Surfing the Kali Yuga. 100%, man. We're in it now. Better ride that tiger. Never want to mention that Antifa attacked the Capitol during Trump's inauguration in 2016, or BLM Antifa terrorizing entire cities last summer. That's Chase. Thank you for reminding me. The whole point of us playing this is prelude to what we're going to have to play in the next episode. John Avlon making the argument that Trump should be prosecuted for having incited this act of insurrection. And he's reading the Insurrection Act, and as he's reading it, I'm thinking, you mean like Nancy Pelosi and company all encouraged Antifa and Black Lives Matter to riot all across the country? What he was reading was not Trump saying, come on down, let's, show these people we're serious. It was, rise up, become ungovernable. It was actual insurrection they were promoting to, by the way, interfere with democratic elections. The Reconstructionist Party. Yeah. It's amazing how that switches, right? In the post-Civil War era, the Reconstructionist Party was the Republican Party. They were radical Republicans. And now the Reconstructionist Party is the Democratic Party. They're really the same party. Not that I care. I love Big Brother. I don't care which party wins. But it is interesting that now the entire country is undergoing Reconstruction. So, we are past time. We've got to get back to work. Thank you all for joining us. Tiger, you have any parting information? I would obviously never say parting shots, especially not in an episode of this, era, this, what do you call it, magnitude, this, whatever, such an important show.
There's a...
Order of magnitude, that's what I was looking for, my bad.
So, in the introduction, like the prelude to one of China's 5 great novels, Sanguo Yanyi, it's about the 3 kingdoms period in China, the warring kingdoms in China. It was a big civil war there. The prelude poem, it reads, 话说天下大事，分久必合，合久必分. And
Gesundheit.
I translate that as the world under heaven, when long divided, must unite. When long united, must divide. This has been so since antiquity. And the point of that poem is they're saying that it's like an ancient natural law, that any country that has been united for a long time, it's going to break apart. Any country that's been broken apart for a long time, it's going to come back together. So, cycles of time.
Interesting. I do like that. We're going to end on that. I can't top that, Tiger. Very good. And Merry Christmas to all you Orthodox out there. And thank you all for listening. Let's say next week, we don't know what day we're going to be coming back, but we will be back next week during the middle of the week, most likely. So until then, everyone, keep out of trouble. Love Big Brother. And we will check in with you next week.